Play action. Bennett looks down the middle. McConkey's wide open. Touchdown, Dogs.
Hey everybody, and just letting you guys know here, that video is a little bit outdated because you have this up here. Bash's CFB show, as you can see, but if you look a little bit closer, and it is very small, I will say, because I want to make this Bash's CFB show, which this background, the blue up here and this black, that's going to change. That is definitely subject to change. I'll probably keep the black, but that text up there is going to be a little bit different. But with that being said, we are with the Lowdown Network. The Lowdown Network is, it was built by BJ, who is with Loudmouth Sports, and this man named Drew Ivory. Drew is a good dude. They've been working on this through basketball, the lenses of basketball, for a little while, and they've expanded to the college basketball world, and now they want to expand to the college football world. Drew approached us, and we had discussions about it, but we don't see the negatives of it, especially with the lack of growth that Loudmouth Sports has had. And even though Loudmouth Sports is a fantastic brand, I think that going with the Lowdown and going with Drew is a fantastic thing that can open us up for a lot of success in the future. So with that being said, you guys can go and support again, I'm having trouble with the adjustment. The Lowdown Network. The Lowdown is what you can search on YouTube, and you'll find it very easily. It's THA, not THE. It's THA, the Lowdown Network. I think you guys will really love what they have to bring to the table, and we're only going to make each other better. I think us trying to make Drew better and BJ better with their basketball show, with ideas that we have, and then vice versa. Them, of course, making us better with the ideas that they have. So, again, like, follow, subscribe. Bash's CFB show on TikTok. Make sure you check that out. It's a little bit dark over here because I did forget to turn on that light. It's all good. Hopefully you guys can bear with me. I just will try not to forget that in the future. And most importantly, guys, check out the playlist that is popping up right here to check out all the other videos under the Loudmouth Sports name. I know, but hey, we are adjusting. We are going. Today, we have the Missouri Tigers, and we are going to talk about the Missouri Tigers starting with the players leaving. All right, we're going to start with key departure, and it's one player. It's the edge rusher Isaiah McGuire going off to the NFL ranks, and then also transferring out. Quarterback Tyler Macon ends up going to Alcorn State, and then you got two wide receivers leaving. One of them big time, the other one not as much. Talski Dove is the one that is not as much. He's going off to Memphis, but Dominic Lovett, their leading receiver from last year, is going out to Georgia to play a wide receiver or a slot in the wide receiver position at Georgia. Two offensive tackles transferring out, Hiron White to SMU and then Luke Griffin to Purdue. And then on defense, you have Trajan Jeffcoat, which is a big-time loss on the edge to Arkansas. And then Toledo picks up Travion Ford, the other edge rusher, and the defensive lineman Arden Walker going to Colorado, which was a pretty big pickup, or a decent pickup for Colorado there. Two linebackers leave the program. Zachary Lovett going to Iowa State, and then Kent State picks up Devin Nicholson. I don't think either of them would have been starters in this defense anyway. And then two corners, Marcus Scott, and he goes off to Cal, and Darius Jackson, the other corner, goes off to Texas State. So overall, the Missouri Tigers lose a couple of big impact players, Lovett and Jeffcoat being the primary ones. But what do they bring in to help replace that? What was that little slip up of the word right there? Well, they bring in Jake Garcia to compete for the starting job off of Miami's roster. Now, I'm not sure how competitive this starting job will be with Jake Garcia. I'm, excited to see how that all works out there. But bringing in Theo Weiss was massive. I think he was probably Oklahoma's best receiver outside of Marvin Mims last year. So would have been the best receiver returning. And for whatever reason, he went to Missouri. And I think that was a huge pickup. Also, a huge pickup to me was offensive tackle Marcellus Johnson. I think he is really, really good. Eastern Michigan G5 guy. He was one of the best G5 tackles that I saw on tape last year. He was really, really good. He could be a big impact transfer for this Missouri Tigers team. Marcellus Johnson playing probably right tackle, I got to assume, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then Cameron Johnson from Houston going to kick inside, but he played tackle at Houston. And I think it was positional fit was the biggest reason why he left. I felt like he knew he translated more to an NFL guard, so he wanted to transfer. But again, a big-time pickup from the G5 ranks, now P5, of course, with Houston. But Cameron Johnson, got to watch out for. On the defensive side of the ball, defensive lineman Austin Firestone comes in from Northwestern. You also have edge rusher Niles Gaddy coming in from Jackson State. Linebacker Sidney Williams comes in from Florida State, and Trevez Johnson comes in as a safety from Florida. All right. We are going to break down this current team real quick before we do our schedule predictions. But like I said, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. That would be really appreciated. And specifically, I want you guys to check out, just as a reminder, check out that playlist that I had tagged in this video now a couple of times, because that is going to show you all of my previews and breakdowns of all the teams I've done so far. And you guys can comment below, A, what you think Missouri is going to do this year, but also B, comment a team you want to see done down below. We have nobody listed right now, so any team that you give me would be lovely. Now, I am a TikTok behind, that's part of it, but let's get to this regular roster real quick as we talk about this Missouri Tigers offense. Now, Brady Cook is back at the quarterback spot, and you got to assume he's a starter, and I'm going to assume he's the starter. And I think that if Jake Garcia or Sam Horn takes that starting job, that is honestly a best-case scenario, because Brady Cook is a good game manager. He can do a lot for you, especially with the weapons that he has. Tyler Stevens is back. Ryan Horsterkamp is back. And then you have those two running backs, Cody Schrader and Nathaniel Pete. Watch out for this, running back room being absolutely elite and deep. Tavares Jones is a guy who I think has a chance to maybe play as that number 2 running back. But the issue I have with that in the depth situation, despite the fact that the kid is really talented and could probably play and probably will play, Nathaniel Pete, Cody Schrader, 2 seniors right there who have both produced at a high level. Now, talking about the wide receiver room, Theo Weiss, of course, coming in. He's probably going to play the Z. I'm curious to see if Mookie Cooper has a breakout year in his 4th year in college. He started at Ohio State, transferred out to Missouri. But a guy I think is going to have a huge, huge year, Luther Burden. You saw flashes of it last year, and that's all you can expect from him. I think he's going to have a big year, along with Chance Looper stepping up. Demarion Houston looking a lot better as well. That is something I project for this offense. And I think if quarterback play is good, they're going to be a really solid team, especially with this offensive line they bring back. Javon Foster comes in as a starter at left tackle. Xavier Delgado, starter at left guard. Cameron Johnson, he's going to kick all the way from guard or from tackle to center. And then you have Marcellus Johnson on that right tackle position. Now, the question is that right guard spot. Armand Membu is a guy who probably will start. He's the most talented out of this group, but you do have Mitchell Walters. You do have EJ Nadama Ogor, I should say. I said that kind of fast, didn't pronunciate the Ogor part or Ogar. Those guys can potentially play that right guard spot. That's the only hole you see, though. Cameron Johnson, definitely going to start. If not, Connor Tollison is ready, and that's what the coaches are telling you. Marcellus Johnson, definitely going to start at right tackle. Makai Lee is a good depth piece. Valen Erickson, a good chance for him to develop in another year behind Javon Foster on that left side. I love this offensive line. I think that they're going to be elite running the ball. And I think if these receivers end up, taking that jump that I expect them to make with Theo Weiss, with Luther Burden in year 2, if Mookie Cooper, it all clicks, Chance Looper, Makai Miller, all these guys step up with Tyler Stevens and Ryan Horstkamp, This offense could be really good, and all they need is good quarterback play. It does not need to be elite. They have enough weapons. They have a good enough offensive line. They need to just be serviceable. Now on defense, this is a defense that had their ups and downs last year for sure, but I think seeing the moments that you saw out of this Missouri defense, the experience that they bring back with Jaden Jernigan coming back in the interior, Darius Robinson, Joe Moore coming back on the edges, you have Christian Williams coming back in the interior as well. You have Josh Landry, Rayless George, you have Niles Gaddy that I previously mentioned, Ben Stratman coming. Man, this is a really deep defensive line, and it's going to be super physical and a super experienced front seven as you add on Tyron Hopper and Chad Bailey to that linebacker core, as long with Tristan Newsom and then Damian Wilson. These linebackers are also very deep, very experienced. Damian Wilson, probably one of the younger guys, but guess what? He is pretty talented himself. And then you got the cornerbacks here that we are going to talk about. Now, this, if there is a concern on the defense, which I don't have too much concern about this defense, this is probably the concern. It's mostly a talent thing, but Joseph Charleston and Jalen Charlies, they're really good players as safeties there. Rakestraw and Abrams Drain, they're going to be two guys that are going to be put to the test, especially in the SEC. But the one spot that you got to be curious about, does Trevez Johnson, a safety coming in from Florida, does he move to that nickel spot, or does he play a third safety type of role, or basically a backup safety? That's what I'm curious about, because I'm not sure if Dalen Carnell is going to be ready for that star position. Now, maybe he is. That should be really good, if he has developed into a great player. Overall, I love this defense as well. I think they could very easily be a top 20 defense in America. Riley Williams going to be the punter, and Harrison Mevis going to be the kicker, with Blake Craig, probably Harrison Mevis battling for that kickoff specialist job. Brett LeBlanc, hello, true freshman. You are going to be our long snapper here for Missouri. All right, breakout players. I already mentioned a couple of them. Tristan Newsom is the linebacker I do think is going to have a massive, massive year here. Now, he is a backup, but with that being said, this is a guy in Tristan Newsom that's in his second year out of community college. He went to Northeast Mississippi Community College. I think he could potentially have a big breakout year in his maybe final year of eligibility. You can never tell anymore. But I also think Tavares Jones, he could have a breakout year if it wasn't for two seniors ahead of him, but he is more talented than both those guys. I think he has more talent than Cody Schrader. I think he has more talent than Nathaniel Pete, just natural God-given stuff. So is that all going to come to fruition this year? That is my question about Jones, but he is a really talented kid out of high school. If you watch his high school tape, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Speaking of talent out of high school, though, Luther Burden is that other guy. It was a big-time recruitment, big-time pickup, and he had so many flashes last year. You saw it in times, and I think they weren't necessarily fine with Dominic Lovett leaving, but they can look themselves in the mirror. Eliah Drinkwitz in this staff can look in the mirror and say, well, at least we got Luther Burden, and at least we brought in Theo Weiss. Because guess what? Luther Burden and Dominic Lovett did the same thing. They had such a similar skill set, both very much slot guys. Lovett played a little bit more Z than he probably should have, so that way they could involve Luther Burden and Dominic Lovett on the field. Does that dynamic of bringing in Theo Weiss, more of an outside receiver, help Luther Burden as far as his development as a slot receiver and a dynamic playmaker? Because the answer to me is, I think, potentially yes. Does this make the team better that Dominic Lovett is not here? Absolutely not. That is not what I'm saying. But does it help Luther Burden become more of a breakout star? And the answer is yes. I think he's a 1,000-yard wide receiver this year. All right, let's talk about this schedule here, and it is not super duper tough, especially early on. South Dakota should be a W for sure. They aren't that good of an FCS program. Now, this one against Middle Tennessee, that one could be dangerous, right? Because Middle Tennessee, of course, went to Miami, beat them, and they usually have explosive offenses under Rick Stockstill. But I don't think that they have the squad to be able to go into Missouri and win this game. Now, this could be a game that scares me because this and the Memphis game are two games that could make me look like a fool when it comes to the Missouri takes. Kansas State versus Missouri. Now, Kansas State had their number last year, beat them 40-12. It was a bloodbath from the beginning. Now, they ran the ball down their throat. They lose the rush threat that Adrian Martinez, of course, was, but also Deuce Vaughn, right? How do they do early on in the season, replacing a little bit of their offense? They still have a good bit coming back. A lot of K-State supporters and just college football media, they like Will Howard a lot. I think he's decent. I don't think he's anything special. I think that Missouri's defense has Kansas State's number this year. They're at Farrett Field or however you say it. They're in Columbia. I think they beat Kansas State in a little bit of a revenge spot. I think it's a close game, though, because I do respect what Kansas State has to bring to the table. I just respect Missouri a lot more this year. I think this is a year we got to watch out for Missouri. And then the Dome in St. Louis. They're playing in the Ed, right? At least is that what they called it? That's what I'm calling it. I got Missouri winning that game. But again, this is a game that can make me eat my words. Also, Vanderbilt, a much better team. First Bank Stadium down in Nashville, Tennessee, a much better team than a lot of people are going to give credit for, and probably going to be a much better team than their record indicates. I think that Missouri goes on the road and wins this game, but this is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, especially with LSU coming to town the following week. It should be interesting to see how this all pans out. Overall, I do think they beat the Commodores. And then I have them losing to LSU. This one I was back and forth on. I could definitely see an upset here with LSU, but at the end of the day, I think LSU is going to understand they have a lot to play for. They're a really talented squad, and I think they have the matchup when you talk about the dynamic run game that the quarterback brings to the table, and that quarterback, of course, being Jaden Daniels. Now, Jaden Daniels is at his best when he's improvising and he's not being contained in that pocket. He's not a pocket passer. He's not going to be a big-time NFL prospect, but you saw against Alabama last year that he was able to take off so many times and be able to just lower the shoulder and be a threatening runner. I think that's what could potentially kill Missouri this year. At Kentucky, I have back-to-back L's here. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with LSU beating them twice. I think it's going to be a physical game against LSU with LSU's run game improving and Brian Kelly's identity really starting to show in year two. Kentucky now is going to be interesting here because, like I said, I think this could be a hangover effect, and a lot of people are going to be thinking about this Kentucky team as, well, they lost Will Levis. How are they going to do? They don't have anybody to throw to. I'd actually very much disagree. This Kentucky wide receiver room is probably the best wide receiver room that Mark Stoops has had there. They are going to be a really dangerous team in the SEC East, probably as dangerous as they have ever been from a matchup perspective. Now, that's just a matchup perspective, right? Does not mean that they are the best team. I'm not going to say that they are better than that 2018 squad that ended up going and hosting Georgia with a chance to, I think they hosted Georgia with a chance to, get a huge statement win. And of course, that did not work out well for them, but they started out the season red hot. It was the Benny Snell year. I think this could be a better team. I'm not going to proclaim it is until we kind of see them on the field. But with Devin Leary coming in and the running backs that they have, the depth of running backs, I was telling Tyler about this, like Sumo Karimbe is probably going to be like the third, fourth, fifth running back on the depth chart. They are still pretty loaded at the running back position, and you just got to expect Kentucky's going to pump out another one and play tough defense. I do think that Missouri gets back, though, and I think they beat a South Carolina team that got gutted in the transfer portal. I'm curious what you guys think of South Carolina because I'm not sure if they're going to be that good of a team this year. I think they might take a step back. They have an off week before they have to go to Georgia. I think this is the worst game to have after a bye. Now, I will say they gave Georgia a game last year. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they go into Samford and give them a game. I don't think they do, though. I think they lose 3 of 4 heading into that Tennessee game, kind of limping, if you were to say. into that Tennessee game, but I think they gain a lot of confidence from Georgia. This could be a game that gets out of hand, but they might play with a lot of pride and might have a guy like Luther Burden go off in this game, or Theo Weiss go off in this game, even though it's all for naught, to gain confidence. We saw that from Kentucky last year, and that's what Kentucky's building on this year. Kentucky had multiple wide receivers play really well against Georgia. They played possession, and guess what? They have a lot of hope going into this year. A lot of that is based on that performance last year. Tennessee. I already did my Tennessee preview, so if you want to check that out, go ahead and check that out. I think that just when you talk about this Missouri squad, you have that offense that I'm talking about probably clicking and peaking at this moment. I get that they beat the crap out of Missouri last year. Hey, guys, guess what? It was a 7-point game with 7 minutes left in the third. You ran up the score, Tennessee fans. What happened last year? That score was not indicative of how close those two teams were to each other. I think Missouri let a lot of games get away from them that probably shouldn't. Kansas State, by the way, was another one of them. And I think that Missouri gets the revenge. And I think if their defense takes the steps that they are needing to take with that wide receiver core developing the way I think as a deep group should and will, and then that running back room playing as well. I mean, I think they do have a three-headed monster with Tavoris Jones taking that big leap. This is, especially in late November or mid-November, home game. I think Tennessee might be overlooking Missouri, especially if they're limping into that. I think that this Missouri squad is dangerous in that situation. And I also think they beat Florida. I think this is a lot of momentum that they carry on to the next week. I think this is a lot of confidence that they gain. And meanwhile, Florida's going to go through a brutal schedule by this point. Is Florida going to be fully focused on this year? Or are they already going to be looking into next year, this recruiting class, and see that off-the-field hype here? I don't think Billy Napier should be on the hot seat whatsoever, regardless on if they even go 0-12. So, I mean, Dan Mullen left him with a disaster. And I think that Missouri in that game and on November 18th will reap the benefits of that disaster for themselves. At Arkansas is going to be a fun one for sure. I was back and forth on this. This is the difference between 8 wins and 9 wins. And to me, that's a big deal because Missouri, they could be going to something like the Outback Bowl, which is not a bad bowl game. Or, yeah, the Outback Bowl. I don't know what they call it anymore. Is it the Outback Bowl or whatever the bowl is? Doesn't matter. The one in Tampa. They could be going to a pretty solid bowl game against a pretty solid team with a chance to get their 10th win of the year. And I think they're going to beat Arkansas. And I think the biggest reason why they're going to beat Arkansas is Arkansas's defensive issues fixed. The former Missouri coach that was their defensive coordinator last year, Barry Odom, off to UNLV. They have to replace him. And a lot of Arkansas fans think that actually that could be an upgrade. That could be a blessing in disguise. Maybe. But with the combination of this offensive line, getting that, pedigree and that experience is already there on the field. They just need to have that chemistry together to be able to work with the fact that this defense is just going to get better and better and better as the year goes on. Having a team like MTSU, though they should not beat them, a threatening offense like that should definitely help Missouri prepare for these types of games like Tennessee. And overall, even though the over-under win total is 6.5, I'm going to play the over. I think the floor for this team, if Eliah Drinkwitz does not screw this up, I think the floor is 7-5 here. You look at their schedule and the wins that I gave them, they could definitely lose to Tennessee. They could lose at Arkansas. But outside of that, I think if you give me Kansas State, then you give me Tennessee, Florida, and Arkansas. Between those 4 games that I gave them as wins, I think they win at least 2. So I think 7-5 is probably the floor for this team. I think they're really talented. The experience that they have on defense, they're really good. Don't be surprised if that Kansas State game, you have to wake up on Missouri a little bit because they're they're going to be a really solid team. Do I think they're going to contend for the SEC championship? I don't think they have talent like that. But with that being said, guys, I really like this team. I just, and a lot of people have been giving me crap for the takes I've had on Missouri, but I'm hoping this video helps you guys understand that, hey, they are really experienced all over the place on defense in their two deep, and they are really experienced and really good and talented on the offensive line. They are 3 running backs deep. They have better receivers. They have 2 tight ends that are really good. It's all dependent on 2 things. Number 1, how is their quarterback play? Number 2, how is their coaching specifically in close games? Because a lot of those dubs and maybe 1 or 2 of those losses might just be in close games. This Missouri team is interesting to me. So with that being said, guys, make sure you go like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Again, I have Missouri going 9-3. Let me know below what you have them doing. We appreciate you, and you have a great day.